Hi, I'm Proma,
And I'm Radhika,
and
and
together we're PROMRAD.
I think that's the best we've ever done it. We're getting better. We're getting better.
Yeah, now that we have audio only, it's really obvious to people.
We are doing a fun little episode that we're going to try where we are going to recommend two shows to each or one show to each other that the other person has not seen. There are so many shows out. I think I looked it up and there was like 584 shows that came out in 2025 alone, which honestly is a decline from 2024, which was like 600 and something, and like it's been going down dramatically every year, but it's still a crazy amount. And no human person can watch everything. And so, we found our different lanes, things that we really like that the other person is just a blind spot for. And people always come to us for recommendations. So we thought, let's just recommend to each other and therefore to you.
Yeah, I think since not doing the job full time anymore, I've realized that unless it is your full time job to keep up with TV all the time, you can't. And even when it was my full time job, there were still so many shows that I missed, which is why there are things that we both, one of us loves and the other person hasn't seen, or things that people ask me about where I'm like, yeah, here's everything you need to know, and like the deep dive I've done and all the interviews, and other things that they'll mention. And I'm like, well, I've never seen a frame, and at this point, I never will.
Yeah, and like a look behind the curtain is sometimes when you're in those newsrooms, and you can speak to this better than me because I've really only been in the freelance capacity. But sometimes you get just assigned to a show's beat. So you are the one who is like following that show through its, however many seasons. But that means that you don't have time to do the other thing, and you're also not assigned to do the other thing. And so it just kind of like falls to the wayside.
Yeah, and there's enough good quality stuff that a lot of the time maybe I wasn't covering something, but I would still make the time to watch it to A, keep up because it was going to come up in some other capacity in awards or like future interviews and things, but also just because like I still love TV and I wanted to.
So in these PROMRAD recommends formats, we're trying this for the first time, but we want to have a little bit of fun with it. So obviously we both heard of the shows that we're both recommending. Like I've heard the title, she's heard the title,
Yeah.
we're
We're
not
women
so
of culture.
yeah, we are out here. We are women of the internet, really. And so I think it would be fun if like we each just try to guess what the show's about and maybe like why we think that the other person really responds to it and likes it, and then we're gonna pitch the show to each other, and at the end maybe we'll say like do you actually think you're gonna like tune in?
Yeah.
Did it work? Okay, so I guess we'll just kick it off. The thing that I'm recommending is Shrinking on Apple TV, 3 seasons in. Promo, what do you think this show's about?
Okay, so I know that shrinking is about therapists, um, and I know it stars Jason Segel, Harrison Ford. Oh my gosh, a real life therapist appears before me. For our audio listeners, she's wearing glasses. She's wearing glasses and she has a notebook to take notes and she dropped her pen.
Oh yeah, we're forgot that we're on audio. We gotta narrate what's happening.
Jessica Williams at some point, if not still. I feel like I heard less. Michael Urie, because they pitched me on him a lot for interviews and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't watch the show, but I'll forward it to someone who does.
It's amazing.
Um, I know that Brett Goldstein had a cameo and it's created by Bill Lawrence of Ted Lasso fame and like a million other things. I know a lot more about the show than I thought. Someone's wife has died.
Yeah.
Plot-wise, I do think that's the extent of it, is I know therapists and dead wife.
Okay, so you really like hit it out of the park. I'm very impressed, and I'm scared for when I have to talk about your show because I don't know anything. Um, so Shrinking takes place in Pasadena, right over here. It really paints Pasadena as like a place that I want to live when I'm older, so it's really winning on that front. But you were correct. It's about a group of therapists, played by Jason Segel, Harrison Ford, and Jessica Williams. They are all entirely in each other's lives too much, but it does begin with the aftermath of Jason Segel's characters. His name is Jimmy in the show. So Jimmy's wife dies in a drunk driving accident, and Jessica Williams' character Gabby was best friends with her, and so they're all kind of like intertwined in each other's lives. And the series really starts with him dealing with his grief, and in doing so, he starts having like unconventional methods for his therapy practice. And it's not like inappropriate stuff, but it is definitely some like HIPAA violations. He's like way too involved. He's like finding them outside of the office and like making them like push their boundaries in a way that is probably not sanctioned by the state of California. And then Harrison Ford is kind of just like this gruff father figure who Jimmy is always trying to, get his approval, and he doesn't give it, but he like loves Jessica Williams' character, and so it's like a funny little dynamic. So I say all of this to say what's crazy about it is that I think that as soon as it kind of drops this like unconventional therapy methods storyline or like framing device, the show gets so much better. And that kind of happens more in seasons 2 and 3. So I think season 1 is the weakest. Seasons 2 and 3 have really leveled up in a way that I think is like so excellent, which is interesting because I feel like we see this a lot in comedies where season 1, the show is trying to find its way. It's kind of figuring out the comedy patterns. It's figuring out the character dynamics and just the way that everything's like working, the pacing and all of that. And I haven't felt that way about a lot of dramas, but this is kind of like a comedy drama because it, like you said, it's by Bill Lawrence, who created Scrubs. So he definitely has like a comedic bent to the show, but it is an hour-long show for the most part. Apple TV plays with their run times all the time. But season 1, I feel like it focuses a little bit too much on the patients. And there's one patient in particular who Jimmy really takes under his wing, and he becomes a very prominent part of the story. And in seasons 2 and 3, he's kind of less of a patient, but like an actual just character and friend in their group. And so I think once it kind of gets to that place, it's way more just like about the interpersonal dynamics of this group of coworkers and friends, this little like community in Pasadena. So if you started on season 1, stay in line, like watch seasons 2 and 3. It's like so much better. And there's a lot of talk about like found family on TV, and so this is definitely falls into that category. So if you're a sucker for that type of show, this should speak to you. It's also about real family because Jimmy has a daughter. She's in high school. She's really trying to figure out her life and like what do you do after your mom has been killed in such a tragic way? How do you grieve? And so I feel like it really, it doesn't steer away from like the messy parts of grief, but because it's also a comedy, it does it. And, there's moments of levity that I think really work for me. Season 1 is really focused on the grief. Season 2, like you mentioned, the Brett Goldstein character, his introduction without giving it away is kind of just about them finding forgiveness. And then season 3 is kind of about moving on. Everyone is kind of like, what is my next step? Like, how do I still respect the memory of this person that we've lost, but we all have to kind of move on with our lives. And what does that look like? Season 3 so far has been just like the best thing. Sherry Cola also joined the cast. She is one of Gabby's patients this season, and her storyline, without giving it away too much, is dealing with female loneliness, which is a topic that I feel like we don't talk about. We obviously talk about male loneliness all the time, and I'm like so sick of it because it's always tied to the violence that these men are just getting away with.
Yeah, they do a lot of like crime and murder, so it's much
Like
easier.
exclusively.
Yeah.
And female loneliness, especially because her character's loneliness, at least in part, is tied to she's in her 30s, her friends have all kind of settled down, started having kids, some of them have moved away. And it's kind of, I don't know, I feel like I keep coming back to this on every podcast. This is like the rehash of 27 Dresses conversation. But like, I'm just like, I really kind of saw myself in some of what she was feeling, where I was like, I do kind of feel some of that loneliness, especially because I've moved to a new city, a couple of years ago. Finding community is hard. And when you're in like the community that you had initially has kind of like, they have other priorities, and it's totally understandable. So I just thought the way that they sometimes like find these different topics to talk about, and they do it in such an interesting way and through the lens of therapy. So it's mature and it's tackling things in a way that I think is respectful. But the characters are not perfect by any means. Damon Wayans Jr. is also on the show, and he is just my fave. Happy endings forever. The cast is incredible, and I think there's been a lot of talk about Harrison Ford. He just had at the SAG Awards, refused to call it the Actor Awards. He had like a Lifetime Achievement tribute.
It's just because people are too dumb to remember what they're called, and they're like, "What's the one with the actors? Those the actor awards." And then they gave into that. It's a real HBO Max changing its name 20 times kind of move.
And everyone has like rejected it, so I feel like they're gonna go back to the SAG Awards eventually, because that is what the union is called, and that is the point of this show. So, you know. But anyways, they did a tribute to Harrison Ford's career, and he's known for being like Indiana Jones, and he's Han Solo. Okay, I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars girl.
That was
It
funny.
was either Han Solo or Luke Skywalker. I
It's
just
Han Solo.
know which one. But he is like so excellent on this show. I don't claim to have seen Harrison Ford's entire filmography, but he's doing this really like soul searching and emotionally grounded work on this show. And he also gets to be like, kind of mean to Jason Segel's character, but in like a loving dad kind of way. And then this is truly the perfect role for Jason Segel because it's his boyish charm and he gets to be vulnerable like he was on How I Met Your Mother, but then he's also showcasing his comedic chops. So I think, all in all, I think this show is a really good blend of really deep emotional work, but it's levitated by some of these really funny moments, the cast chemistry. I think you should watch it. Season 3, literally, I mainlined the screeners and I can't wait to go back and watch it again, so I'm really sinking into the story. But I just think they talk about the topics in such a beautiful way, and I think everyone should watch it. The end.
I love a comedy about grief. As you know, there's like some of my favorite. I mean, Fleabag, number one, like Holy Grail. There is so much comedy, dark comedy, but also just regular comedy to be mined from some of like the worst experiences we have sometimes. And you can't really know that until and unless you've been there. And I definitely have been at lows where some stuff was really funny. I remember one time being very sad and crying on the train, and then this woman walked in and started singing Adele's Someone Like You. And I was like,
An incredible
there's,
pull.
and like, I am tearing up, crying already, but I was like, no, I have to laugh because are you serious that this is happening? And that's kind of like a irony of circumstance kind of example, but
For
yeah,
sure.
there is a lot of humor to be found in those situations, and then obviously juxtaposed with the seriousness. The one of the things I love about TV and why it has remained so strongly in my life all this time, again, other than work, is that the catharsis you find of like watching characters go through anything you've experienced or stuff that you haven't experienced, and just like really sinking into that. And it sounds like this show is very much doing that. So
Yeah.
we were talking about the early podcast stuff, and I was like, should I watch Shrinking and catch up for this? Full disclosure, and then Radhika was like, "No, I'm gonna recommend it to you." So,
I was gonna say that was kind of like what prompted this whole idea. And it is hard to recommend a show about grief, but I think it's just the way that they navigate what they actually talk about and what they show and the character's journey through that. So,
and we always work about disclaiming that to people. Like, if I tell someone to watch a show, I'll be like, "By the way, it is about X, Y, Z." So, like, don't watch it if you're not in that place.
the number of people that have asked me if they should watch Hamnet and they're like recent moms, and I've been like, no, like, don't do it.
Not for you.
Exactly. This is what we're here for. This is why we are doing this episode.
Yes, that's the kind of like specificity. Again, the kind of curation you can look for when you come to us. Like, we're TV
We're
therapy.
at your service.
Yeah. Yeah, we know what to avoid and what might help. So,
Okay, yay.
hello.
Why do you have a stethoscope? I must
Uh,
ask.
you can thank Drunk Bollywood. One of our actors, her husband is a doctor, and so this is his garbage stethoscope, I guess.
Is your heart still beating? We're good?
Where is it?
Uh-oh.
I don't hear anything.
You know, in our intro I wrote, we're not robots, but like, are we?
Isn't that
Proma doesn't have a heartbeat.
maybe my pulse?
Do the carotid on your neck. It's not a working stethoscope, and that's fine. It's
As a
prop.
doctor, I have to declare my own time of death. um, I appear to not be alive. Okay, so sorry for our audio only listeners. I'm wearing scrubs, medical scrubs. that I got from a friend of mine and this stethoscope because I'm here to talk about St. Denis Medical on NBC, which I love so much. It has become one of my favorite shows, like one of my weekly treats. I'm gonna take this off the stethoscope. So this is a choking hazard to leave it around your neck.
But I like knew that it was NBC or Peacock, and it fits that NBC comedy vibe. I know it's a workplace
Bum,
comedy.
bum, bum.
I'm assuming it's set at a hospital or maybe a
Correct,
different,
correct.
or okay, hospital. And I think it's from like the Superstore creators, and that's truly all I know. Because someone did pitch me about St. Denis Medical once, and I'm like you, I was like, I haven't seen it. You know that I love a medical show. Like we have previously stated, I watched 20 seasons of Grey's Anatomy and loved every second.
Yeah,
So
you really did. Yes, so you also get gold stars, full marks. It is all of that, and also I know that you love an NBC comedy, like a golden era sitcom. Golden era, as in like 10 to 20 years ago, is what I'm saying. The
yeah.
lineup that was 30 Rock, Parks and Rec, The Office, and like Community,
Community.
goated era of NBC comedies. Their previous golden era would have been like Friends, Seinfeld, like that block in the 90s. But this was really cool because then it happened in the 2010s and it was like, oh, this is possible again. And a lot of those shows came from the kind of same comedy ecosystem, which is really exciting. And so, yeah, Superstore is from Justin Spitzer and Eric Legend. Justin Spitzer was a writer and producer on The Office. He was the creator of Superstore. Eric Legend also wrote on that show and became a producer. He also worked on American Auto and Rutherford Falls. So, yes, these are like very seasoned, like workplace comedy writers and producers. And it has so many elements of like what people love in a workplace comedy. It is mockumentary style. They don't like address the documentary crew that often, but like in the very first episode, they're being welcomed in, invited into the space, and it's shot in that style that was very much pioneered on The Office by Greg Daniels and by director Randall Einhorn, who's now working on Abbott Elementary, which I'll mention later. It is a medical show, but it's also quite positive, or it's like dark comedy in a lot of moments, but it's not, it's not The Pit. They're not opposed. Like these are two sides of the same coin. And my doctor friends who watch both love both because it's just capturing different elements of the experience. And as just TV viewers without medical knowledge or experience, they are scratching very different itches for me. But I think it's so cool that like they're tackling this experience authentically in completely different ways. So you have like the talking heads, which is always a great time. It has coworkers who become family, a nice little like workplace family, which is always nice and balanced, I think, well with the professional side of things. It has quirky characters, whether it's like the leads or the secondary or the kind of tertiary ones that start coming in. And it does have, I believe, a slow burning romance.
We love those.
So part of the reason I'm recommending this one, I watch it week to week. It is a show that is performing well, but I think a lot of people don't know about. I don't talk to that many people who seem to know about it and watch it. And I think that people just, again, like we were saying earlier, like just don't know how many shows are out there or how to access them. You mentioned it's on NBC or Peacock. It is on NBC, streaming on Peacock, but like there are so many barriers to entry now for people. I think just mentally, like you mention a streamer or a channel that they don't have, and they just like shut down, tune out, and are like, okay, that show is not going to be part of my life. And it's understandable, but it's a shame. And I also talk to people all the time who still worship at the altar of Friends or The Office or a show that has been over for like over 10 years. And that's fine, and you can love those shows and they can be your favorites forever. But I disagree with the kind of subtext a lot of the time that people have, which is like nothing else is this good. There's a lot of other stuff that's that good. And especially, with The Office as a specific example, like St. Denis is kind of directly descended from The Office in a really cool way, and you get to see the evolution of that format and those character types that you love reapplied in a different workspace and in the modern era, and that's so exciting to me creatively and as a viewer. I think St. Denis actually starts pretty solid, but it gets better with every episode in the first season, and now we're like midway through season 2 and it's like really in a groove. It's so much more fun once you get to know the characters. I think people also often don't have that patience anymore. I love watching it week to week. It's one of those shows that I actually save sometimes. Like I need to know there's an episode I haven't seen. That's actually something I look for on purpose. I need it, like I'll watch it tomorrow or I'll watch it in a couple of days. Like I'll watch it when I really am in the mood for it because I know that it's gonna hit so hard. I've mentioned Superstore a bunch. I'm gonna mention it again because it's one of my favorites in recent years. Abbott Elementary was just what, like 5, 6 years ago? And St. Dennis is on now, so like we have a nice rotating lineup of like new ones coming in that have a chance to get really good. I don't know, I just think that's a very exciting place to be in, and that any thoughts and conversations about the workplace comedy or the sitcom not having legs are misplaced.
I agree completely. And workplace comedies are just like a comfort watch. Even Shrinking to an extent, like it's not a comedy in the same way, but it's a workplace dramedy. And I think we were talking about a little bit with the Found Family. I always think that these are stories that, like you said, they have legs and they are just fun to be in for extended periods of time because there's always like weird character dynamics that are just hilarious. And I'm really honestly relieved that NBC is still committing to doing these types of shows.
Okay, the other thing, a bromance has emerged in season 2 that I love so much, which is between Matt and Bruce. Bruce is a cocky surgeon. He's just so full of himself and his abilities. And he's right, he's a very gifted surgeon. But to hear him talk about it is just ridiculous. He's so funny. He's played by Josh Lawson, who was also the cocky pharmacist in Superstore.
Okay.
Kind of the same character, except that Tate the pharmacist, like, is an asshole. But Bruce is a good guy who just has this kind of cocky exterior, and he has become so funny, and he and Matt have become friends. Matt is this very innocent young nurse who was raised in not a cult, they don't call it a cult, but in a very interesting community in rural Montana. And then he just like kind of up and ran off one day and he ends up at St. Denis, which is located in Oregon. But Matt and Bruce, very unlikely pair, have become best buds, and I could watch them together for hours. I think that if you start it, it'll be perfectly enjoyable, but stick it out because there is the slow burn, there's some great character development. It's one of those sitcoms where like they pepper in these little character details here and there, like Matt mentioning his history, for example, and then that continues to add up week on week until you have this more full picture of who they are. Network comedies have always been a great place to discover new talent or see someone who you've watched kind of here and there in smaller roles suddenly get like a lead role or a guest role and really sink their teeth into it. In conclusion, St. Dennis. I love it so much.
I mean, again, I feel like you sold me. We didn't have like a tough task at hand, but you know, there's so much TV, but I love a good NBC comedy. I actually feel like I've been lacking one in my life because I kind of fell off on Abbott. I need to go back to it. I know that's ABC, but you know, same vibes. And so I do have a void in my life of those nostalgic type of workplace comedies, so I'm gonna give it a try for sure.
Yeah, it will definitely, if that's the kind of show you're looking for, it is very, very satisfying.
All right. Okay, well, that concludes our first PROMRAD Recommends. Leave us a comment if you have seen any of these shows, if you want to see these shows, if we convinced you to tune in to these shows, and like what you guys are watching, if you have any recommendations for us. Obviously, like we said, we cannot watch everything, so we have not watched everything. So we are open. We are officially on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram.
There's
And
no excuse.
if there are other platforms that we need to be on, we'll be on them soon.
I don't know if I can handle that.
Same, honestly.
Like, comment, subscribe, rate, share with a friend. I really appreciate everyone who has been listening to these or watching these, however you get your podcasts, but it's time to spread the love and the joy, and we would so appreciate you for that. Share it with the rad to your prom. And support to unemployed girlies.
No, like quite literally, this has been a week. We'll be back soon with another episode because now we have all the time in the world to be recording.
All the time that I'm going to spend fighting with the different podcast platforms. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Something to look forward to.
I love living in this era.
Let's not talk about that.
I hate tequila.